Hello everyone. Today in our software engineering course, we will be discussing a very important part, which is the unit and integration testing. The topics that I will cover today are unit test, what to test, what are the common errors, and what is the procedural steps. Then we will go to the integration testing, and we will discuss the strategies of integration testing, its procedures and its benefits. Then we will go to specific variations of the integration testing, which is the regression test and the smoke test. And finally, we will discuss what is critical component and how to document the testing. So what is the unit testing strategies? The focus of the unit test is the verification of the smallest unit, the tiniest unit of the software design, which is normally called as a component or a program module. The kind of testing it uses, the testing strategy it uses, is a white box oriented testing, which means that it checks the structural paths, the structural part of the program unit, whether that is working correctly or not. That means how the program is structured. We have to see the code. That is why it is called white box, because we open it and see the path and test it. Later on, we will discuss what is a white box. We will know more about the white box testing. Using the component level design description as a guide, the important control paths are tested to uncover errors within the boundary of the module. So we have the design of the component that will be taken as a guide to determine some test cases. The test cases will be dealing with each individual control path. So that is why we said it is a white box. It's a structural kind of testing. We have to go to each path, and each path has to be tested, because if you test each path, the idea is that each statement in the unit, the program module, needs to be tested. So we have to create the test case in such a way that all the paths, all the statements are being executed. The unit test of different components can be conducted in parallel, because it is within that module. We are determining the control paths and the statements that are within the boundary of the module. So it is, if two people are coding two different components, then they can test it in parallel. It is not necessary that it has to be done module by module in a sequential manner. As and when a programmer or a resource who has been given the responsibility of a component, as and when he completes, it is his responsibility to get it unit tested. The construction is not considered to be complete unless it is completely unit tested. So two things are important. The unit test consideration, what item of the unit is to be tested, what items within that unit, what are those items that will be tested. That is called as the unit test consideration. And the other one is the procedure, how to proceed in conducting the test for the consideration. So these two things we will discuss a little bit more detail. So unit test consideration, that means what exactly we will test in the unit. What should be focused when we say it is a unit, we will focus on the unit, the functionality, then what will be the functionality that we will be checking. So we will look into the local data structure to check if the data is stored within the program, which is always temporarily. So whatever local data structures that we have defined, that its integrity is maintained. It is not unduly manipulated or corrupted. And we will check the boundary conditions. That means whether the data value that we have described, either for a variable or a structure, that there is some limit on that, so it doesn't cross that limit. If it crosses that limit, how does it behave in boundary conditions? And the case of boundary conditions, that means at the boundary of the data value or the structure limit, how does the program behave? Then we will see the independent paths, how many independent paths are there, and we will have to go into each path, execute each path, and check the statements are correctly being executed. Then we will also see the error handling paths. These independent paths are basically doing the functionality, and there will be some error handling paths which are the exceptional cases. So how is the exceptional cases handled in the program? By using the error handling paths. Then the last is the module interface. Because no module works completely independently, it has to collaborate with some other module to do the overall function of the software. So there will be some data movement, or in object-oriented there may be some message movement. And so something, either the module will be being called from another module, or that module is invoking so many other routines, other modules. So all these module interfaces are points where we have to test it. So these are the considerations or the items within the unit. For that particular unit we have to test. So that is why I said what to test. Then we come to okay, so some more things. Let us see. While doing the path testing, the test case should be designed to uncover errors due to computations, incorrect comparisons, improper control flow. So improper control flow we all understand. Computations means some logic, some data manipulation may be there. And then there may be some incorrect comparison by which the sequence of the control flow may get disturbed. So these are the three things that we have to be careful that it works correctly, that the programmer has put it in the right perspective. And the independent paths, which is also called as the basis path, there will be some loops and there will be some conditions. So all these things has to be, it should be exercised at least once by the test case. So the test case has to be properly designed so that not only that each independent path is then being executed, but also it covers all the statements and the loops at least once, so that the broad array of the path errors will be uncovered. It will be discovered at the time of, it will be detected at the time of unit testing. Additionally, exception flow, we have said, error condition paths, these also will we have to do, because otherwise there will be a control integrity loss. So that structural flow will be disturbed. And then the module interface are required to check that unit level, because before we go to the integration testing, which will actually test the integration, the module interrelated modules functionality for a number of modules. Before we go to the integration test, at the system test we have to check the interface, otherwise we will have very great problem in the integration. So before we get into integration, we need to have the module interfaces correctly executing. And then the local data structures, whether they are handled properly. Also there will be some global data. So how the global data, what is the local impact on the global data? That is also an important thing. If the global data is getting changed, then how will it create any problem for any other module? So those things has to be understood. Those are part of the unit test considerations. So if we don't do this, then what will be the common errors? So there are some errors that we as human beings, when we do the software implementation or the construction of the code, then we make a lot of errors. So where exactly the errors happen? So if we are aware that these kind of errors happen, then we will be able to avoid these errors. So there could be errors in the computational area like misunderstanding, incorrect arithmetic precedence, mixed mode operations, incorrect initialization. This is a very common thing, incorrect initialization. Or maybe we have forgotten to initialize. Nowadays, of course, this is not a very big thing because a lot of cleaning up and initialization is taken care by the object-oriented systems. But if you're making a conventional program, then you will have to think of it. Precision inaccuracy. What should be the precision of the variable, especially for the floating point arithmetic? Incorrect symbolic representation of an expression. So that is another thing. Also, mixed mode operation means the type definitions and how the type changes during the mixed mode operations. Then comparison or conditions checking and control flow are closely coupled with one another. So whenever there is a comparison condition, normally the control flow changes based on the comparison condition. So comparison of different data types, that's a problem. Incorrect logical operator precedence and incorrect comparison of variables, improper non-existent loop termination. So loop is not getting terminated properly, so it gets into an indefinite loop. This is also a very common mistake. Failure to exit when divergent iteration is encountered. So this is related to this one. Improperly modified loop variable. So suppose the loop variable itself is getting modified, then you have a problem because loop variables are not supposed to be considered as the program variables. So all those things, this kind of things, comparison and looping you can get these common errors. Similarly, you can get potential errors while error handling. Error description is unintelligible. Error noted does not correspond to error encountered. So we have noted that the error has happened, but it doesn't corresponds to the error encountered. So there is a mismatch. Error condition causes system intervention prior to handling, and exception condition processing is incorrect. Error description does not provide enough information to assist in the location of the cause of the error. So if the description does not provide, then maintainability will be very low. So when later on, when there is some problem and the debugger and another software engineer looks at this, that person will not be able to understand from where this causes come. So badly coding of the exception conditions and the error messages and corresponding to each error, those things are what is the main cause here. And then you can have some boundary condition failures that occurs when the nth element of an n-dimensional array is processed, or when the maximum or minimum allowable value is encountered for any variable. If you have given, because you have given some certain precision and it has exceeded that, so it will get some garbage, and once it gets garbage, further all the computation will be incorrect. So boundary value analysis is a very important task in the unit test. So it is not shortly called as a BVA. And test cases are to be designed that exercise data structures, control flow, data values. Data values have to be taken just below and just above to see the boundary value, and maxima minima to be able to uncover all different types of errors. So your test cases has to be very intelligently designed to take care of all the common errors that we have seen. Not only what we saw the considerations, but also that certain kind of common errors occur. So how do we do the testing, unit testing? What steps we have to do? How we will proceed for it? So first of all, the construction has to be completed. That is a minimum criteria. Then we will come to the designing of the unit cases. Unit test cases, any test case will be represented like a triplet with input criteria. I is input criteria, that is the input data set. S is the state of the system. That means at what point of time we are giving this input, what is the condition in which we are giving. And O is the expected output. So with every, earlier we said that with the input there will be an expected output. Now we have added a third thing, that under these conditions this is the expected output. So if S changes, we may have, even though the input is same, if S changes, this output may change. So sometimes we don't acknowledge, we don't remember these things. So we give only one input and one output. So it works in under one state, under certain condition, but it doesn't work another condition, because we have not taken into account the input output, the output variation with the same input when the state changes. So we have to think of all the different conditions that may happen when we are giving this input. Test cases can be designed before coding or after the source code has been generated. Normally, the tendency is that we will complete the construction and then write the test case, because now we have to test our program. But the better way, the recommended way is that you take the design specification, because design specification guides the test case and it also guides the writing of your code. So take the design specification. First, you write the code. First, you write the test case. So you do the test case design before coding. Okay. So what is the advantage? Because you know what you will be testing, what is supposed to be getting tested correctly. So you will write a better code, because you are aware that these are the different conditions that will happen. These are the data conditions that happen. This is the way global data may get changed. So all the errors you are aware. So you have already written the test case for it. So because you are aware of the way it will be tested and the way the program will move, the data will move, you will automatically write a better code. Your coding will have less errors, so that your unit testing coding time is reduced. Because no component is a standalone program that we discussed, but however, because it is not a standalone program, we have to test its interfaces. So, but how do we do that interface testing? Because we are only testing within the boundary of that particular unit. So what we have to do, we have to write driver or stub software, which will help us in the interface testing. In the most application, so what is a driver and what is a stub? So we can see this diagram. A driver is a module which is invoking the module which is under testing. So this is the module being unit tested, and this one is not, it is an independent module, but it has to be called from someone. Some main module is there which is calling this. It cannot be just independently executed. All modules cannot be independently executed. Then it becomes each program, it becomes a software. So it is connected to some other module, but you don't have this module. It belongs to somebody else. Some other engineer is developing it. You are developing this. So what you do, you don't know what is his status. You cannot ask him. So you have to create a small driver program. And similarly, if this module is for its functionality is also using many other modules, then for each of these modules that it is invoking, you have to write stubs. So this will be dummy and this will also be dummy. Both are dummy, and this will have global data and this will have some dummy code, because it has to take in the data and it has to return the right data. So a stub is a dummy called program. So here we have seen, in most applications, a driver is just a main program that accepts the test case data, passes such data to the component to be tested, and prints the relevant results. So if unless it prints the relevant results, then we will not know that the data has been passed correctly. How the stub will be written? Stub is a dummy called program or invoked program or message passing program, uses the subordinate modules interface, may do minimal data manipulation, and print the result in the entry, and also it will transfer the control to the unit that is being tested. So it is just a kind of a dummy. It is not the full program. So stub serves to replace the modules that are subordinate to the component to be tested. So when we do the integration testing, at the place of the stub, we will take the actual module and replace it. Drivers and stubs are representing overhead. So they are not part of the effort, but because it is part of the testing, we have to write it. So they are all overheads, and it is not part of the delivered software. And normally the effort doesn't count this. So, but however, without driver and stub, you cannot test the interface. So, what is the choice? Either you write the driver and stub and check the interface. Otherwise, you have to postpone this interface testing till the integration testing. But if you do that, then you will not be able to identify where exactly the problem is happening, because interface testing will contain multiple modules. So you don't know which module is creating the problem. So always it is recommended that you write some driver and stuff, which are all dummy codes. You can take already made reuse. You can do the driver and stuff reusable and do the interface testing. So unit testing is simplified when a component with high cohesion is designed, when only one function is addressed by a component, and number of test cases is reduced and errors can be easily predicted and uncovered. So if you have written a module which is very highly cohesive, then you will have less number of test cases and it is easier. So this is a design parameter. The person who is constructing cannot do it, but in the design, that is why high cohesion and low coupling is always a design objective, so that the program will be having only a single function or maybe some correlated functions, so that it is easier for us to handle it and test it. Next, we come to the integration testing. In the integration testing, it is a systematic technique for constructing the system structure. There we were looking at the program structure. Now we are looking for the complete software structure as per the architecture or the design, while at the same time conducting tests to uncover errors associated with the interfacing. So we are doing two things. We are building the complete software, integrating as per the structure. That is one part. Other part is, as and when we are doing this building, we are also testing whether that build that we have made, the interfaces are working correctly or not. There are two approaches. One is called the Big Bang, the other is called the incremental. In the Big Bang approach, what we do, we take all the components because they are all unit tested and we integrate it at once. We make a complete build of all the components that is supposed to be in the software. But what happens? Incremental integration is, and the incremental integration is when a set of errors is encountered. So correction is difficult. I think this should have been Big Bang. In the Big Bang integration, this should have been Big Bang. So please read it as Big Bang. In the Big Bang integration, when you get a set of errors, what you will do? Because you don't know where it is. So correction is very difficult. Pinpointing the cause of the error is very difficult, because you have taken everything together. So you have complicated the task of testing by taking everything together. When an error comes, it is difficult for you to trace the path of the error and find out the cause, which module caused it. That is why we say the cause cannot be isolated. It can be in multiple modules. Okay, so because you have a very vast expanse, and once the error is corrected in one place, you will find new ones in the another one. So like that, it will keep on repeating, and it is a very difficult task, and it is very time consuming. Whereas in the incremental approach, the system is constructed and tested in small increments. That means you don't integrate everything together. You integrate little by little, so that it is, the errors are easier to isolate. You know what you have incremented, so you know how to determine the error. Now if you go to the integration, there are two approaches, but one is the Big Bang, and there are two strategies, that is Big Bang and the incremental. And if you go to the incremental approach, in the incremental approach, which is more preferred approach, there are two ways you can integrate. One is called the top-down integration. The other is called the bottom-up. So let us look at the top-down integration. In the top-down integration is an incremental approach that we have discussed to construct the program structure. So you start from the top of the module. You know, this is your, suppose this is your module structure. This is obtained in the architecture or the design phase. and you start from the top. And then, as you know, any tree traversal, either you can go depth first or you can go breadth first. So when you go depth first, you will collect and go to one single path, one major control path you will select, and you will take a path. Then here there are two paths. So either after this you have to go to M6 or M8. So like that, these are the considerations you will take. So first you will go to one path. When you exhaust one path, then you go to the next path and you go to the next path. So that is what has been explained in this text, and I am not going into detail of it because all of you computer science students, you know what is breadth first and depth first. So all that we have to understand is that in the top-down integration, incremental integration, we are going by taking a depth first in this particular example, and we can also go to breadth first. If you go to the breadth first, that's written here. If you go to the breadth first, then what will happen? We will take M1, M2, M3, M4 because we are considering all the components that are below M1. Then we will go into one of it and then we will consider the components below it and like that. So first we will integrate M1, M2, M3, M4. Then we will integrate M5, M6 with it. And then possibly we will integrate M7. Then we will integrate M8. So we will go in the levels. Each level we will integrate. And here we will integrate paths. In the first one we will integrate top to down the paths. In the second one we will integrate in the levels. So what happens? The main control module is used. So how do we go in the procedure? What are the steps we will take? So first we will take the main control module that is used as the test driver, and the stubs, all that stubs that we created in the unit test will be now replaced by the actual components, which are directly subordinate to the driver. Whichever driver we take from whichever, either the breadth or the depth, there will always be a driver. So we will look at that driver component. We will take the actual driver component, not the dummy, and we will see how many stubs it needed. So that all those the stubs will be now replaced by the actual subordinate components. And depending on the integration approach, whether depth first or breadth first, subordinate stubs are replaced one at a time with actual components. We will not consider everything together. It is better because we are going incremental. So go one by one, either in the depth or the breadth. Then tests are conducted as each component is integrated. So as and when you keep integrating the component to your build, you will keep testing it. On completion of each set tests, another stub is replaced with the real component. And regression testing may be conducted to ensure new errors have not been produced. We discussed about regression testing earlier, I think. So when regression testing means we will repeat the integration to see that new errors have not been introduced. So when we add the new module, we will do the test case for that particular new module for the interfacing of those modules. However, we will repeat the old one. Sometimes we will regress the paths of the new one or old one, so that to see that nothing has got impacted. Now, what is the problem due to stub replacing in the low level components? Processing at a low level in the hierarchy may be required to adequately. So these are the problems. So one problem is problem due to stub replacing at low level components. We are talking of the problems in top-down integration. So what will happen? The processing at the low levels in the hierarchy may be required to adequately test the upper level modules, because you are going from top to bottom. So the top module is having certain functionality that you cannot do because you have not integrated the bottom level. You are going from top level by level, so you have not integrated everything. So that is one of the problem. No significant data flow can flow upward in the program structure. So this also cannot be tested. If there is a program flow upward, then that cannot be tested. Tester will then either delay many tests until stubs are replaced with actual modules, or develop stubs that perform limited functions and simulate the actual module. So because of these two problems, because there is a lot of requirement, functionally requirement in the higher module, top module, based on the lower module, and also the data that is moving from bottom module to upper module, that cannot be tested because we have not added the bottommost module in the top-down integration. So some of the functionality cannot be tested. So what is the tester has two options: either he delays, that means he doesn't do the integration until all steps are replaced. So that means he does a very long path together, or he cannot do it actually incrementally, but he will do it like a cluster or something. And then he will develop stubs that perform limited functions. So he will have to again create more stubs. So that is where top-down integration, because it has all these problems, it is normally not liked. So bottom-up integration is more popular. As the name implies, it begins construction and testing of atomic modules. So it starts with the lowest level of the module and keeps extending the system, integrated system, from bottom to the up by moving into those paths. Because components are integrated from bottom up processing, required for component subordinate to give to the given level is always available. So because it is starting from the lower level, so that subordinate levels are always available. So that is, there is no need for any stubs. And also the immediate upper one functionality will be able to satisfy because the lower one is available. So those two problems that we encountered, these problems that we encountered in the case of top-down integration, we don't have in the bottom-up. So what is the process steps we do in the bottom-up integration? You take the low-level components and combine it into clusters called blades that perform a specific software subfunction. So you have to select a subfunction, and according to the subfunction, you select your low-level components and form a cluster and create a build. Then a driver or a control program for the testing is written to coordinate these test cases. So here you have to write one small driver. If the driver is not part of the cluster, then you have to write a driver for it. But you don't have to write all the different stubs because it's a single one. But there, because there are multiple subfunctions, you have to write multiple stubs. Here, you have to write a single driver. And this is like a main program, just invoking. Is written to coordinate test cases, input, output, and the cluster is tested. And the drivers are removed and clusters are combined. So when you have different clusters, you can also do it parallelly. So you can take different subfunctions, test them parallelly by making different clusters, and then you can, each one will have its driver. Then when you combine all the clusters, then you can remove the drivers and have the actual programs combining it. So this is a much more manageable and better approach. Now we come to understand what is regression testing. We have talked about it, but we haven't seen it properly. So regression testing is the re-execution of a subset of tests that have been already conducted to ensure that changes have not introduced as side effects. So normally in regression testing, some part of the integration testing is taken, and also some part of the unit test is taken, the main functionality of the unit test. So those things are taken, and a regression test case is prepared, or a regression test bed is prepared. And the purpose is that something that you have tested earlier, but you made change to some modules. So you have to see that inadvertently some side effect might have gone into the modules which you have not changed, because you changed some modules, and there is a collaboration between the modules of a software. So when you change one, something might have happened to another module. So that is why you have to create a regression test cases, keep it ready for each software, and you have to keep on re-executing each time you do a change. Each time a new module is added as part of the integration testing, new data flow paths are established, new I/O may occur, new control logic is invoked. So many changes have happened. Due to these changes, functions that previously worked may develop errors. Whenever software is corrected, there is a change in some aspect of the software configuration, which is the program, documentation, or the data that it supports. So that is why you have to do the regression testing activity that helps to ensure that changes do not introduce unintended behavior or additional errors. And sometimes regression testing, because it is an overhead, so it is very difficult to do it manually. A lot of people do it manually, but nowadays this manual testing is being replaced by tools. And these tools, you have to write some scripts, and they will automate the capture and playback. So once you have the scripts, you just run it. It will take the test cases, and it will run it, and it will also capture the result, and you can it will record it, so you can play back at any point and see it, and you can also modify your script as per the test case change. So this will help you in comparison, in comparing what is the expected output and what is the actual output in the recorded. Regression testing contains three different classes of test cases. So one is a representative sample test that will exercise all software functions, and additional tests that focus on the software functions that are likely to be affected by the change. So you have to do some debugging to find out based on the design and also by the functionality. So you can go to the requirements, and you can go to the basically the design documents. You can find out, you can predict which software module could have got affected. So you have to create some additional test case for that, and tests that focus on the software components that have been changed. So one is that you create some sample for all the functions, all the major software function. That is one. Second is those that you think will definitely get affected. Its possibility is very high, that one. And third is the one that you have actually added. So you need to add test cases for that. So three types of test cases will be available in the regression testing. As integration testing proceeds, the number of regression tests can grow quite large. So if you are doing the regression testing as part of the integration testing, when you are integrating more and more modules to your build, many times we said we will have to do the regression testing. So when you do that, the number of regression tests can grow very large, because each time you add, you have to do the regression test. That's a very costly affair. So the regression test suite should be designed to include only those tests that address one or more classes of errors in each of the major program functions. So when you write the regression test cases, the test suite, it is called a test suite. That means a set of all the test cases. That time what you have to do, you have to be very careful, because it has to be run many times. Okay, you're doing the integration testing. At the time, again, you will do so many regression testing. That's a very costly thing. So you should be designed to include only those tests that address one or more classes of errors, not all the errors, but a few important errors. You have to select those classes of errors, and only few of those classes of errors you include in the regression test. Not everything, not 100%. It is impractical and inefficient to re-execute every test for every program function once it is changed. Because of this, you have to do selectively test cases have to be taken into the regression test suite. So now we have completed integration testing, we have completed the regression testing. So now we will come to smoke testing. This is another approach to integration testing. And it happens after the software modules are being developed, or rather during the used when means during the software modules are being developed. So what we saw, integration testing is done when a new development is happening, and you are after the unit test, you have completed the unit test of some modules, so you start integrating them and do the integration testing. Then you need to have a regression test, because when you are integrating, some old path which you have already tested may get affected. That is called as the side effect. So to test the side effects, you are doing the regression testing. Regression testing is also done later, other times, other than the integration. When the software is in maintenance phase and you are doing a bigger change, big change. So each time you do a change to a software, there is likely a chance that something will get affected. So you keep some regression test suite ready. Whenever you make a change, you run that regression test suite. So now I think you are very clear what is regression testing. So now we will come to another type of integration testing, which is called smoke testing. What is the purpose of the store testing and when do we do it? First of all, we do it before integration testing, before unit testing. In fact, before unit testing. Sometimes we do it even before unit testing. So what we do when the software modules are being developed. So as and when one software module is completed and possibly part of it is unit tested, it gets into the build and we do a integration testing. That kind of testing is called smoke testing. Before integration testing allows the software team to keep watch on its project progress and quality on a frequent basis. When you say frequent, it is like almost daily basis. So daily there is a build is happening and let's see how smoke testing is carried out. Software components are integrated into a build as and when they are coded. And the build includes all the data files, libraries, reusable modules, and developed components. So to run that developed component, whatever you need, that will be included into the build so that one or more product functions can be tested. So it normally happens in your configuration manager. And we have, if you remember, we discussed that in the configuration management tool, other case tools can also be integrated. So normally this smoke testing tool is integrated into the software configuration manager. So in each time a person completes, he transfer it into that branch of the configuration management tool. And in that configuration management tool, all the code, all the modules that have been taken, they are built together to an executable load file and including all the data, libraries, reusable modules. So that it can be executed. So that is called a build. Then a series of tests are carried out to detect the problems in the build considering its intended functionality. So here we are not only looking at the integration of the modules, but also the functionality that it is supposed to carry out. It is supposed to provide. The objective is to uncover all the severe errors, fatal errors that may result in making the software project behind schedule. So this will fail, all the failures, all the major failures that may happen, that is tested while it is in the development stage. It is when the construction phase is going on, you do some smoke testing to find out major errors. If you find out the major errors during the development, then you are doing it very early in the phase. So you will do less of integration testing and less of system testing. You will find less errors in there. So you will not fall behind schedule. But you have not done it if it is a very critical complex system and you have not done smoke testing, then you can fall behind the project schedule. The build is integrated with other builds and the entire product is smoke tested. The integration approach may be either top down or bottom up. Normally, it is a mix of the top down or a bottom up. There is something which goes bottom up, something which goes top down, and sometimes it is called as a sandwich method. And normally, when you do the smoke testing, we are more interested in the functionality. So, for a particular product function, whatever are the modules, whether they are in the top of the hierarchy or they are in the bottom of the hierarchy, we have to take everything. So that is why it's kind of a sandwich method, a sandwich approach which we use, not just top down or bottom up. What is the benefit of the smoke testing? The integration risk is minimized because we are doing it as and when we are doing, and all the showstoppers, failures, they get found out very early. The quality of the end product is improved because we are doing functional testing, also architectural testing and the component level design defects. So if there are component level problems that is found out, The between different modules there is functional problem that is found out, and also any architectural problem in interfacing these modules is found out. So that is where a lot of different types of errors are uncovered, and very major errors get uncovered. So therefore the end product is much improved in the quality. Early diagnosis and corrections are simplified, so that is one good thing. So as and when you are adding the modules, you know where to find the cause of the error. So you can the diagnosis, the debugging, finding the root cause is very easy, so you can correct them in a very easy manner. And the progress is easier to assess because this is in the construction phase. During the construction phase itself, you know how many modules have completed the test. So they are complete, they are in the complete phase, and how many have failed. So they have gone back to the developer. So both the integration, part of the integration testing is complete and part of the construction is complete. So you know the status of the construction as well as the integration testing. So this is a very good tool to the team, or even it to the project manager and the customer. You can report to the customer if you are doing a smoke testing. So nowadays, with the introduction of this automated tools, which are merged with the integrated with the software configuration manager, in which you are developing your products, and with the incremental development, this kind of smoke testing has become a very a known practice. Now we will look at what is critical module. A critical module has one or more of the following characteristics. Either it addresses several software requirements, or it has a high level control in the program structure. When it has a high level control, that means it is controlling many paths, many modules. Or it is a complex, very much error prone because it has many complex logic inside it, functionality. Or it has a definite performance requirement. So it could be a critical because if this module is not properly coded, not properly designed, then it will lead to performance problems of the software itself. So any of these four, if it is having the characteristic, then you can call that module as a critical module. Why identifying critical modules? Because integration testing is conducted, the tester should identify the critical modules. These critical modules should be tested many times and it should be tested early. So how it will be tested? First of all, it has to be tested early. So the integration to this critical module should be done early. In the integration, when we do the top down or the bottom up or the sandwich method, we have to identify and take these critical modules because they are the major source of failures. And also in the regression test, we have to include this critical module functions, so that each time we do the change, we have to see that the critical modules are not affected. So that is another thing. So these are the two recommendations. So for this reason, it is very important for the testers to find out what is the critical module of the. So from the design we can make out, because it will have any of these four characteristics. From the design documents, you can determine which is a critical module. Now, the last one in this series of our unit test and integration test is the integration test documentation, because documentation, we have said, is very important for us. So it will have three aspects: the plan, the test plan, the test cases, and the test results. So the test plan is normally called the test specification, provides the overall plan for the integration of the software and the description of the each task that it will do. The document contains a test plan and a test procedure, that is what are the tasks, and becomes part of the software configuration. That means it is a configurable item which might undergo some change depending on the test results. So therefore we make it a part of the software configuration. The test plan describes the overall strategy of the integration. What is the kind of strategy, whether we should go for what kind of integration, what kind of dummy and drivers we will write, dummy stub and drivers, those things. Testing is divided into phases, so and builds the address specific functional and behavior characteristic of the software. So the strategy can also include phase wise. Instead of just incremental, we can say that it is creating phases into the integration testing based on functional and behavior characteristics. Instead of just top down or bottom up, it is taking a functional and behavioral characteristics to create the clusters and do the phase wise integration testing. A schedule of the integration and related topics is also part of the specification. That means in the test plan, the first part is the test plan. We said in the test plan we need to have the start and end dates for the each phase and any other constraints that has to be included. A brief description of the overhead software that we have to develop for that particular phase, stub and drivers. That is also, and how much effort we will require for it, that is also part of the test plan. The order of the integration and corresponding tests at each integration steps are described. Then integration testing may be divided into the following test phases by grouping modules. So we can see, because we said by functionality we will do it. So this is one way of dividing it. It is not mandatory. Normally it is project specific. So, but this is a approach one person can take. Once you have an approach, you can modify it in your own project. So you have user interactions, so you can check all the user interactions kind of modules. Then you can do all the data manipulation and analysis, those which have got a lot of manipulation of data and analysis. Then display programs, all the display programs or the database management programs. So you can also do the phases by this way, or in other words, when you do the clusters, when you design your phase, if for each phase you can, when you do your integration testing, you can give focus to 1, 2, 3 and 4, these 3 things. Accordingly, the test cases can address the interface integrity of each module because interaction is there. Then functional validity, that is the manipulation of the data, and information content, which is the display, and also the data manipulation, local global area, and also the display and the performance. And database management is also part of this functional validity. So performance is also implied requirements or non-functional requirements. So when you do your test case, so now we have come to the test case, your test case has to use all these things. So up to here we were in the test planning. Now we have come to the procedure and the test case. Finally, we have to write in the test specification document, we have to write the test environment. That means how we will build up our database, test database, and what are the other software tools it will contain, and all the resources, computational resources we are using it, and also the human resources that we will use. And the listing of all the test cases, the way we have, how we will determine is written here, and all the test cases along with its expected results, the triplet we discussed, I, S and O, it will be part of the document. So this test specification document, which contains, we have said, it will contain 3 parts, the plan, the test cases. So we have discussed the test cases and we have now discussed the test plan. And finally, you will, when you do the conduct the tests, the test results will be generated. So this test results will be recorded, and the problems that have come out, specifically the problems, that also has to be listed, and that finally will become the part of the test specification. So we have come to the end of our long session. So let's summarize it very quickly. So we started with the different considerations for unit test and examined some of the common errors that we do. And we discussed the unit test conducting procedure, how to write the driver and stub modules for checking the interfaces. Then we discussed the what and why of integration testing. We have taken a lot of time to discuss and what is its benefits. We examined 2 approaches or 2 strategies, top down and bottom up. What was their benefits and limitations? And then we looked into the procedural aspects of each of these strategy, whether with the procedural aspect of the top down and the procedural aspect of the bottom up. Then after finishing the integration testing, we looked into a special case of the integration testing, which is regression testing. And this we have said that the regression testing is required to be done to see that changes to one part of the software does not introduce error into the another part, which is normally given the terminology side effect. So many times you will hear this word side effect. So regression test tries to see that side effects are not introduced, or if they are introduced, to detect it and to close it. Then we examine the aspects of smoke test. This is another type of integration test, but we don't do it as a part of the testing, but we do it as a part of the construction phase. So that is the difference. So we call it as a smoke test. That means to find the smoke before it goes to the fire. Finally, we discuss the test specification document and its contents. So I have given you a very elaborate description along with all the considerations, benefits, structure, procedure of unit test, integration testing, and its two variations, which is called regression testing and the smoke testing. So in the other classes, we will discuss by other aspects of the testing. So for now, thank you all.